Hello and welcome to day 4 of the Rise of the Rebel Matriarch Leadership Summit. Today is all about the wise woman, and I'm very excited to be here today to discuss this very important topic and one that was inspired by one of our wise women here on the panel, Yoli Mahaye, who spoke into the need for us to envision the return to the matriarchy and talk about rematriating society. So that is what this roundtable discussion is all about today. And we hope that in some way we will be able to help you reconnect with the sacred feminine and the earth herself. You know, rematriation is a powerful practice of reestablishing the umbilical connection to the Great Mother, healing the spiritual and cultural disconnection imposed by colonisation and the capitalist patriarchal paradigm that we are all in. And I will hand over the mic to Yoli in a moment, who, she is a yoga and shiatsu therapist and an educator in comparative religions and global studies, MA comparative religious ethics. And Yoli works at the intersection of Indigenous preservation, healing arts, and social justice, and is co-founder of Decipher Group. Raised in her family's Native American spiritual teachings, Yoli spent 12 years of her young adulthood studying language, yoga, tantra, healing arts, and meditation in India, and continues to travel and teach around the globe. She specializes in transformative healing space for especially hard to treat, autoimmune, chronic conditions, unexplainable diagnosable compound situations. She's devoted to healing for women and birthing bodies and offers supportive space for grief, birth loss, traumatic birth experiences, and the spiritual dimension. So it's a great honor to have Yoli here, who was a contributing author for the Rebel Ma Healing in the Time of the Feminine Women's Story of Liberation book. And when we spoke about doing this roundtable, she felt it was really important to have, the Indigenous voices in here and to have this conversation and opening it up with women all over the world, which is where we are now, on 4 corners of the globe here, which is exciting. And Yoli, thank you so much for tuning in so early.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for that invitation. I will, pre-apologize for my croaky early morning voice. But I mean, I'll do anything for the ancestors, really. I'm in service of the ancestors and the collective and womanhood, the ecosystem. So here we are, gathering our thoughts in the early morning hours. It's still not quite the twilight where I am. It's not stirring just yet, but we're stirring. We're going to have a conversation today, share some thoughts about rematriation. Truly what's stirring inside of each of us right now. There's a calling. I think that's really, why the 4 corners here have gathered, because there's a voice to be heard in the folds at the moment, and that voice, that collective intelligence, is calling us home to rest. It's a really simple message. Like, we could end the talk right here, actually. That this calling is this: come home to rest. Why? Because we are like mortally tired. We're intergenerationally tired. And we're not making the best decisions under this duress and this fatigue. We're easily agitated, very reactionary. And truly, we need a moment to gather ourselves, take stock of the space in front of us, like the landscape in front of us, and consider that our brains, these poor cognitive thinking minds, are so tired, that our creative problem solving, the place where we're going to find inspiration for our current paradigms, lives in rest states. states. We're going to access that information in rest states. So rematriating the body, I mean, every time I type that into a document, you know, the bot still corrects it to repatriation, or as somebody, repatriation, you know, meaning the return to one's fatherland, you know, like this. But we're all in agreement with Earth, the mother. So I'm pretty sure if I'm going to return my body to the land, it's going to be rematriation. You know, like this. This is a decolonial act. We can also define and say what we mean by that. It for some reason is a radical act that it shouldn't be. It should just be like a really normal thing, you know. But in the context of how we're living, modernity, information age, global age, industrial age, however you want to count the time or design the timeline. It apparently is an extremely radical act to put work down and return one's body to the earth for rest. So before I say much more, I would like to invite us into a little ritual land acknowledgement, something that can bring us into this body, return this body to the land, and also call in the ancestors of land, the ancestors of connection and bloodline and what have you, to be in the space, right? So until we take that ritual pause and open ourselves up to the wider plurality, you know, or the rest of the club, the team, then we are just kind of working in an individualized framework. But when we remember that we're also part of collectives, multiple collectives, the lift gets easier, right? I heard my friend Uma say a million times, many hands make light work, right? But like, now let's get like a lot of hands in there. Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna invite you into this little ritual space, however you are in this moment. Ah, just accessing your breath. You can have your eyes closed, you can have your eyes open. It doesn't matter. There's no wrong way to connect. The invitation is to just access your breath. Don't change anything. Meet your breath right where it is. How are you breathing? Are there little micro movements that invite you into accessing that breath, discovering that breath? Where is the breath? A little bit maybe in the chest or dancing in and around the ribs. Well, the little sounds that you want to make as you settle into this breath, oohs and ahs and ees and oohs and yawns and things. Little wiggles. Just letting the breath be exactly as it is. Notice that the mind is interceding and asking you to judge or evaluate the breath. Oh, my breath is so bad. Oh, it's so tight, this and that. You know what? Your breath is actually perfect. You are breathing, you are alive in this moment, unless somehow you have figured out Zoom, or Facebook, or what have you from the spirit realm. That's cool. Next level. You're alive, you're breathing. It's good. Now just see with each inhale, can you let the breath descend a little bit from the chest? Maybe we're just at the edge of the diaphragm. A little bit lower into the abdomen, or moving around some of the organs and organ spaces. We don't have to be in a rush, and just sort of let it be naturally occurring. Maybe we're moving towards the navel. How the diaphragm unfurls, massaging the internal organs. Dancing around the intestines. Starting to move in and around all the reproductive organs and the many twists and turns of the intestines. Finding our depth in the pelvic bowl. Three-dimensionally, front and back and right and left and up and down. We're in and around womb spaces and ovary spaces, and moving towards the base of the pelvic bowl. Descending here to the earth of this body, the earth and the water of this body. The whole of this body is earth. And here we are in this seat of earthiness at the base of the pelvic bowl. And then turning on your imagination a little bit, like you have some tendrils or vines or something, and you can reach down from the base of the pelvic bowl into the earth below. And reaching down to the legs, and whatever part of the feet are connecting to the earth also extends from there, reaching into the earth, and feel like you can feel with your fingers this warm, moist, nourishing environment, this perfect setting filled with nutrients. I wonder what land is beneath you. Is it sandy clay, thick black soil, red richness, golden sparkles, blue sprinkles? So many options. The water close to the edge, they're stone deep. Feel in this earth, connect, and like a little vacuum, you can draw this earth energy up into your own body, filling with the blues and browns and blacks and reds and greens and oranges. There's a whole rainbow of earth presentation filling this body. Every toe tip, every toenail, every hair follicle and pore is oozing earth energy. And in this moment of connection, the earth of this body and the earth below, this breath, animating life force, we pause to honor the ancestors of land. Do you know their names? I'm here resting on the lands of the Sauk, Fox, and Potawatomi peoples, the Miami and Kickapoo peoples, to the north, the Ottawa peoples of Three Council Fires, Anishinaabe ancestors. These are great lands, waterways, very busy lands of trade and movement. I am near one of the ancient trails that ran along the Great Lake. I'm in the land of the five sacred lakes, this energizing pranic force on Turtle Island. And what about the names of the ancestors that we do not know? I know there were great mound builder civilizations here, great trading centers between all of the continents of this area. Long ago ancestors, whose names I do not know, but in this moment, calling all the ancestors of Lamb into this space, this learning and sharing space. And if it feels like something nourishing, you could also invite in your ancestors, the bloodline, a chosen family of contracts, associations, and agreements. It's pretty busy in the ancestor field. And the more time that you hang out there, the more interesting things you might see. Stones, crystals, trees, pterianthropes, half human, half animal creatures, light beings, sound beings, stars and planets themselves. We might see ancestors known and unknown, nameable and unnameable, but if it feels like an invitation you want to take up, call them also into this space. Let us be in the healing and exploration together. And then just open your eyes if they're closed and look around your space. Just feel into the space that's around you. Feel that closeness and presence. And what's also fun right now is that even of the four of us, all our ancestors are now together partying. It's basically what the ancestors like to do. Cheerlead, support, and celebrate. We might have some conceptualizations here, in the living realm that complicate things. It's really not much more complicated than that. And if you hang out with the ancestors of land, of association and connection, then they will share this very simple message with you. Please come home to rest. Please lay your body down on this earth and heal. Heal what? Right? This wound that we've inherited of separation. The social construct that we live under, because it is oppressive for all, the social construct of difference and hierarchies, of fabricated identities that are then pitted against one another in a contest of who gets to hold power and who gets to be in proximity to power, whose then responsibility it is to hold up power. This relationship is very important to name, because it would seem we're in a moment of what feels like sabotage. Why can we not move it forward? Like, who on earth is upholding this? Oh, it's sad to say. But this original wound, right? This social construct that includes an economic construct of capitalism, governmental constructs of so-called democracies, it requires a hijacking of your connection to the earth. And so there's an inbuilt mechanism that every day, all day, is working to keep you separated, thinking that you are separate from the earth. Oh, we're humans, we're outside of Earth's system. See, we can control, we can blanket wetlands with concrete, we can build cities on water. That's here, my place, Chicagoland area. They literally pushed the lake back and filled it in and reversed the flow of a river to build a city on a wetland. Like, we can do crazy engineering kind of things. We can disrupt like that. We could blow up mountains and what have you to make roads. But this system requires everyone to be subscribed to a belief that we are separate. Because if that switch was turned on, if we knew that we are part of the landscape, that we are part of the earth, we wouldn't be as controllable. So this is part of the control mechanism to break the human connection to earth. You break the human connection to earth, you can then have really a cascade of breakages and separations with this. And so, what an incredibly radical act, an embodied act. This isn't an idea, it's an action to lay one's body down on the earth and return to heal the image in your subconscious mind that you are of the earth. And so we can utilize ritual, we can utilize liminal practices, we can utilize meditative states and journey experiences to bring us back to this connection and harmony. When we're thinking about something as grand as rematriating society, then we're into the, the aspirational conceptualization of what that is. But I want you to know that the action, like if we want to get to the aspiration, that the simple actions all live in this healing and connecting and reconnecting with this. When I think about wombs, this is a pretty womb forward space in the Rebel Ma space. A lot of the stories in the latest edition of the book are about womb journeys. The story I shared is about the birth of my child. It's definitely a womb journey. And I will also say I'm here for the non-binary spectrum journey. This was the framework that I inherited being raised in an Indigenous tradition, that the construct of gender, if there was one, is fluid and spectrum. And we have bodies with wombs, we have bodies with penises, we also have bodies that have both. And this body with womb space is a super magical body, is a super human body endowed with great gifts. Whole being can grow life. And one of the endowments that we've inherited of those of us that live in bodies with womb spaces, all those wombs are part of an ecosystem. They are like, we are actually one body and many wombs. And the power that could be reclaimed with rested womb some like Hollywood Marvel level superhero stuff. They don't want you to know this. They don't want you, they want the system, they want to keep you working, spinning, burning up that yin essence, so your womb is like dried out prune, they want you as dry and tired as possible, because if you woke up to the power of womanhood, the ecosystem of womb spaces, very radical things can happen with this. So it is very much part of that design of that social construct that bodies with womb spaces must be oppressed, and to keep the minds of those people like spinning, feeling like a sense of unsafety, lack of safety, and that will then push people into the tribal contractions, and and then swoops in this sort of patriarchal societal structure of like protecting these vulnerable wombs, and then we're just perpetuating this story, this narrative that hasn't been around for that long in comparison to this current epoch, this current world or era. It just depends on how your people count time, right? So again, action oriented, we have to slow down. We literally have to lay down like a lot, and then do it together. And it counts if we're laying down also on Zoom, also in the digital. It's wild. We have this like technological thing happening. We just did it. We just did a land acknowledgement, and we just united wombs, and we just united ancestors. Like we just did an example of that. So I'll finish up my thoughts here, with this decolonization. Decolonization is a process. Decolonization is a spiritual practice. And decolonization is this process of how we liberate ourselves from that social construct, and how that social construct lives in the folds of this body, and subsequently our mind, psychology, storylines like this, our multiple identities. It's a reclamation of the body and the earth. I'll pause here.
Wow. Amazing. Really beautiful. Yes, it's all about the rest, as I was saying earlier. I wrote a poem one time, and I claimed it as, we're no longer fighting with guns and fists, but with rest and pleasure as acts of resistance. And I was really proud of that. But when I was reading it to like, my family, or thinking about my family or my lineage, I felt guilty. I felt like I was a traitor to them for like, prioritizing rest and pleasure in my life over fighting, like, and surviving and struggling. And it's kind of ingrained in us, isn't it, to feel guilty or bad or dirty about resting, when like that's literally the superpower we all need to embody more of. Yeah, incredible. Thank you so much, Yoli. That was a beautiful, beautiful download. And I am really excited to, hand the mic over to Uma, who I'm sure has lots to say in response or to in addition to. Uma Dinsmore-Tuli is a mother of three and a carer for three elders, a neurodivergent Irish English mongrel who was first introduced to yoga in London in 1965 by her Dublin-born mother. Uma has been teaching yoga for over 25 years, co-founder of the Yoga Nidra Network. She's the author of 6 books, including Yoni Shakti, A Woman's Guide to Power and Freedom Through Yoga and Tantra, and Nidra Shakti, The Power of Rest, an illustrated encyclopedia of Yoga Nidra. And we saw boxes of that behind her because it's just been published and we can't wait to get our hands on one. And Uma lives in Stroud and travels widely, sharing retreats, trainings, collective acts of rest, and Mother Peace tarot readings. She weaves yoga therapy, dream play, and yoga nidra together with tarot as part of her commitment to intuitive healing arts with the intention to reawaken the heart of humanity. Beautiful, Uma, and it's so lovely to have you here. Join us again today, all on rematriation of society. Welcome, namaste.
You. Thank you, dear Saoirse, for inviting me here. And thank you. I'm proud and honored to be in communication here in our circle with Yoli and with Eve. And I'm speaking to you from golden limestone lands. This is the land of the goddess Kuda, whose name is given to the Cotswolds where I live, little tiny hills with lots of little streams and rivers. And I went this morning before this talk up into the woods to listen to what needed to be said, and then Yoli said it. So I would like to amplify and underline what my dear sister, colleague and friend and wise guide Yoli Mayaye has said, because everything that she has spoken is in fact exactly what needs to be heard, the words who need to be heard, which is the meaning of your name, I do believe, she whose words are heard. I hear those words and I wish for all to hear those words too. And how do we hear those words? The call for rest is at the heart of what needs to happen in order for this act of rematriation to become an embodied experience. So there's three things I'm going to say, right? So the first thing is, and sometimes when she talks in rhyme and rhythm like that. When I talk about the rhythm of the golden limestone here, there are yellow stones. They're like the honey when the sun shines on, and all the people who built their little houses here couldn't disrupt that landscape. It couldn't be disrupted because I've been living on this land where Paleolithic people were living, right? Stone Age people, we found their tools. We found how they lived. We listened to the trees. And what's occurring when Yoli speaks of the call for rest is that this helps us understand that rematriation is not a concept or a political ideology. It's not about the triumph of one gender over another. It's about a remembrance. To remember how to live so that all life may thrive in the lands where humans are, we don't need to destroy. But in our state of exhaustion, and we are an exhausted species, and I do want to honor my exhausted ancestors who are having a fine party now. I come from a long line of servants, displaced people, refugees, people whose homes were burned, were kicked off their land and moved around this piece of island, like millions of other people who are at the mercy of the British Empire. That's my ancestors. My children's ancestors are from India, and the same thing happened to them. When people are moved from their land, forcibly displaced, something gets broken. And one of the key tools of colonization and empire is to literally displace and move the people from the land. And if you get fortunate enough to stay on your land, that then is stolen from you. So the idea of this as a kind of concept, as a political ideology, is not where it's at. In order to remember what it's like to be able to be part of the earth again, we need to stop, as Yoli said, and literally lay our bodies down on the earth so we can hear her. So when we're here and resting here, we hear what she has to say. Yeah, and what she has to say is in us. So as an indigenous act, i.e. an act that's giving back to the earth, that's in every body. Every human body is part of the earth. The universe is self-aware and we're part of her. And so one of the key, in fact, the primary and first act of rematriation is to stop and lay our bodies on the earth. And this morning when I went up into the woods and listened, I heard like this call, a balm for our species to hear, which is to be able to remember what our connection calls for us to do. Because if we're part of something, if we love, yeah, we'll do anything for that person, that creature, that river. And I want to give you a really practical example of what rematriation is, literally from my little lands here. And people forget that the British Empire practiced its tools of disconnection from the land on the British peasantry, on the people who lived here, the worshippers of Kuda and their ancestors, or the Iron Age people, or the people before the Celts, before the Romans. They lived here on this land peaceably because there was no point fighting with each other because you had to share the same resources. And what they practiced on was like a displacement of that land, boxing it in and owning it. So the land back movement, if you actually understand where that needs to come right back to in history, it will go way, way, way back to medieval Britain, right? That's where they started stealing the land, and all over the place. Empires have done that everywhere. You steal the land from the people so they have nowhere to go, and then you wall it in, right, and own it. So in order to understand how we might remember what it literally feels like to be connected, that's rematriation. When you actually feel what it's like to stop long enough, to be honest, you know, at this point, the collective stopping is really key. And I want to amplify what Yoli said about this, because you do it on your own, then you feel like you, Saoirse. You feel like, oh, fucking hell, I'm guilty. All my ancestors worked themselves to death. You know, they were servants, they were slaves, they were dispossessed, they were indentured laborers. Wherever they've come from, they worked themselves to death. And so I feel guilty because I'm the person lying down here, you know, even in the bad weather, you just take a sheepskin and enough coats. You know, that's why I'm wearing 6 coats and 7 sweaters, because I had to go down and lay outside, right? But if you do it on your own, you feel guilty, because the collective reparation needs to be all together. Because if just one person does it, then they feel out of sync with the machinery Yoli so eloquently described. It's a multi-billion dollar machinery of warfare and theft and capitalism, right? It's designed to distract you. And I spent freaking 10 years of my life as a media studies lecturer, so I know about distraction, right? I know what the machinery does. It's designed to steal your dreams. That's why Netflix, their biggest opposition is sleep. Yeah, I'm going around in a little few circles here because I tell stories that way, right? So when we get back to like the collective process, so first we stop. Second, we all do it together, and we encourage and uplift other people to do that too. This is how I spend my privilege. I have the privilege of a white face. I am the white-faced servant of the darkest mother there is, and she's the dark mother of rest, okay? That's my job, right? So I'm speaking to you as her servant, and I'm telling you that what I hear is that the collective act of rest is something that needs to be held together, not just one at a time, but then we form a network, and all the hearts resting on the earth, we all hear together. And as Yoli pointed out, this can happen etherically now. We can rematriate simultaneously in all corners of the world if everybody rests together. And on the Yoga Nidra Network, we've created like 600 Yoga Nidras in 24 different languages. And my absolute vision that I've had since a child is a complete rematriation of the entire human species, taking a sacred siesta, Yoga Nidra, whatever you call it. Everybody has a different name for it. Siesta Sagrada, you know, like a beautiful, it's not just a nap. This is a radical act, and it's radical. Why? Because we're stopping the machinery of capitalism. It is the biggest fucking wrench in the machinery. People just stop. They say, sorry, I'm not going in now. I'm leaving my job. I'm going to become useless to that machinery. But in the process of becoming useless to that machinery, I become awakened to my useful part in the collective act of rest. Fucking brilliant. Sorry to swear, but like, there you go. Isn't that amazing? It's effortless. The point is not efforting to do more. This is not a political ideology that we have to go out in the streets and shout for, although that is also helpful, yeah? But we lie down, yeah? And we don't lie down because we're dead. We lie down in order to reawaken to our dreams, to our connection to the earth, to everybody else that's resting. And our ancestors are super happy because we're resting on their behalf, because they, you know, they were tired and we're not. We can pause. So that's really kind of, that was it. Stop, do it together, and listen. Because when we actually listen, we understand that this pausing and resting and doing it together allows for our resting bodies to become part of a network. This is a web. This is a web of life of which we're part. And Yoli spoke absolutely with eloquence and power about the ecosystem of womanhood, of which we are all a part, right? Not a part as in one word, but a part as in one part of the whole. And so that means that every single tiny act is a bit of growth towards this remembrance. We don't have to think of anything new. We just have to remember. Now, the last thing I wanted to say about those 3 things. So stop, pause, do it together. Know that it's radical. Know that you don't have to do anything else. Know that there's loads of resources in all your own languages in any way you like. When I started to do the Encyclopedia of Yoga Nidra, I have to say, at Yoli's clear guidance, God, thank you for that, Yoli, Goddess, thank you. She's like, yeah, well, this is all very well, but you're just like about the history of Yoga Nidra when the white people got hold of it and started to tell that history. When I went deep in, I realized in every continent in the world, every single place, from the Zokwe to Amazonia, yeah, I did an A to Z, you know, from the Toltec Mexicas to the Maori dreamers, to the Xhosa people in Southern Africa, to the Celts, to the Druids, to the Samis. There is these resting practices, and they're all part of rematriation, every single one of them. And as we do this, we're repairing even the language that we speak. And I just want to end that if you ever do, as Yoli said, you type matriation into any app, WhatsApp, your Word program, your email program, frigging Facebook, frigging Instagram, what will it do? We'll fucking replace the M with a P. I tried it in, I'm fascinated too. I'm a logophilia. I'm obsessed with words, right? And that's the machinery at work. So every time you even write the word, you have to consciously correct the machinery's mistake. And it is a mistake, and it's a small mistake because it only lasted for a short blink of an eye. And if we go back to our goddesses Kuda and gazillions of years ago, we know how to do this, people. We just have to remember and watch your language. What language do people use in Turtle Island to talk about earth? They talk about dirt. What language do we use here in England? We use soil. She is not dirt. She is not dirty. She's our mother and we love her. This is not soil. This is not soiling. This is purification of our remembrance. So don't use those words. Don't call her dirt. Don't call her soil. Call her what she is, your mother, our mother, the whole mother, and lay down and listen to her. There you go. That's what I reckon. And then we just remember who we are. Made of this earth, belonging to this earth, beloved by this earth. She is so freaking happy when all the humans get horizontal, because the vertical ones cause all sorts of problem. And I wanted to give the wisdom goddesses the last word, because as Yoli was speaking, I was connecting in with our wonderful cards, and I called first Bhairavi. Can you see her? Yeah.
Yeah, now we can. Yeah, leave it there for a second.
There's Bhairavi, right?
Mm-hmm.
She is Vak, the voice in service of those who have no voice. Our mother has only our voices. We are the voice of the earth. And listen to Pam McCabe. She makes me cry every time I hear her. She speaks of that remembrance, so that we might be a species that causes all life to thrive. We could do it, you just have to remember. The second card I called, so Bhairavi is like who we are right now. We're speaking on behalf of the earth. Bhuvaneshwari, can you see her? Right. She whose body is the universe. Bhuvaneshwari. That's what we're doing. And then I called Chinnamasta, who's the moment of, like, right now, people, we're doing it. We're already doing it. We did it right here. Thank you for listening. And God bless you, Yoli. Goddess bless you for your words. May they be heard by everyone. And thank you to Saoirse and Eve and all of the Rebel Ma people for holding a space for the ecosystem of womanhood to rise up and reconnect and remember. Jai Om Shri Matre Namaha. Holy Mary, Mother of God. Pray to her too.
Oh God, you are brilliant. I love it. That is awesome. Yes, indeed. I can't wait to read this book. It's going to be incredible. You must send it over to me for Christmas. I'll be home in Ireland. Yeah, that would be awesome. Beautiful. Well, that was a trip around the world and to every corner of every Indigenous tribe in the world. But I'm very excited now to take a deep breath into our wombs and into the Mother Earth. And releasing out. And we will move to Eve E. White, who is on Bundjalung country and is part of one of the oldest living cultures on planet Earth. Eve is an earth custodian with Wiradjuri, Irish, Scottish, Spanish, and Mexican descent. She's a mother of 4 to music man Steve Spacek and the creator of Sisasa, Sun and Moon Imbued Skincare. Eve dances with kids, caring for country, where she cooks nutritious meals and teaches Bunyar Buglama. I'm sorry if I butchered that, Eve, again. And holds space through a cultural trauma-informed lens. She has been holding space in schools and Aboriginal healing centres for the past 6 years, bringing her earth wisdom to the forefront. And she is the co-creator and facilitator of First Nations Cultural Awareness for Wellness Practitioners, director of the Nyungula Aboriginal Corporation, supporting Yoga Australia with their Reconciliation Action Plan. And I don't think they call it reconciliation anymore, do they? Do they call it another word now? A better.
They called it reciprocity.
Reciprocity. That's it. Yeah.
But they call it a wrap. They still call it a reconciliation plan. Yeah. Mm. But we decided to call it reciprocity because it's the sharing of cultures. We were never, it wasn't like we were friends and then fell out and became friends again. It kind of didn't really happen that way on these lands. Yeah. So thank you for that introduction. I almost am speechless after you two powerhouse women just shared what you shared, and you kind of slapped me on the face and was like, "Go, you need to go rest." And it's funny because like I remember my husband's brother came over to stay with us, and he was like, "Eve, do you ever rest?" And I was like, "Yeah, when I sleep." And he's like, no, like, do you sit down and rest? And I was like, well, that's why I'm a yoga teacher, because if I don't rest, then maybe we might sit or lay for part of the class. So that was a really good remembrance for me, hearing your messages. And and I think I learned my busyness from my mother, who definitely learned her busyness from her mother, and so on. And yeah, I think it's just so powerful to rest in nature. And I'm really grateful that I spend so much time, like once a week, I sit on country, with mob, with Bunjalung mob in these lands here, and we make fire with 2 sticks. We make fire old way, and it might take 4 goes for us to get that fire lit, and then to make a little nest and blow into it and have the flame in the hands, and then it may sit and be okay on that fire, or it may not, depending on where we were. We were in the rainforest, like we were at Wollumben, which is like big sacred mountain, just like behind me where I birthed my 4th baby, just at the base of that mountain. It's where you get the first sunrise in the whole of the world, which is pretty epic. And so it's wet there, so it was like super hard to make that fire, stay lit. But it's that, each person like rubbing their hands and the next person and passing it on and keeping that keeping that momentum going. So I feel so grateful that I can, be in that space and also hold space. Me and my husband held space last week, and what I wanted to do was to use, the fire, to start with the fire, to cleanse with the fire, to, we always do that to connect us, to share that, and then we always sit in circle and we clap the clap sticks and share what our gratitude is, or our appreciation, or to share. And those sharings are so beautiful, just to sit and to, take that time to really listen and to learn how to listen. And then we laid everyone down, and we did, I was using the word resonance that day through this Yoli cultural trauma informed framework. We have 7 words, 7 R words that you feel into, which is I can remember them: respect, reciprocity, resilience, rights, relatedness, resonance, and the one that I often forget is responsibility, because I'm like, maybe I need to be a bit more responsible. And so I used the word resonance, and it was all about like the heart and the resonance that our heart has, and the way that the heart can, you know, be felt before you're even seen, and how the heart can has ways of things to come in and out, and we have to be quite discerning of what we allow into the heart, especially right now. Yay. And so then we laid them down, and I put them in gunganing, which is deep listening, deep meditation, you know, listening to the stillness and the inner spring within, which some people know from here as dadiri, another word for it. So we laid them down, and you know, got them to do exactly what you ladies have been saying is the way to activate your superpowers. And then I had then we played Yudiki or didgeridoo, and yeah, it was beautiful. And then I got them to walk down to the water, which is like beautiful, like clean, clear, sacred waters that come down from the mountain that the animals around. And I got them to go down in silence, you know, and just there's kids and everything, and they were noisy, but everyone was just in silence and was able to really appreciate that stillness and silence that the, you know, the water can bring. And then we make food for them. So we made some food, and we all sat down and ate. And then there's an auntie who brings song, and so she had a song, and we sung her song, and it was, yeah, a beautiful experience. So I guess like I feel so privileged that I have that in my daily life, you know, like, and I think that it's something that so many people are missing, and so many people are needing this earth medicine, you know. And it's like just taking our shoes off and putting them on our mother, and letting her wisdom and her, you know, unconditional support come up through her. You know, we all have mothers that we came through, and that's another thing I was going to share. As we're going in circle, we clap the clap sticks, and when you finished your share, you say through the mother, which is wajangu, through the mother, as we all have come from the earth, and we've all come through a mother. And so, and we say that just to acknowledge, you know, what someone else has said, and acknowledge them, and, you know, also coming through a mother and being on the mother. And then, you know, to call nature your relative. So for instance, we've got Father Sky, Mother Earth, Grandfather Moon, Grandfather Sun, our aunties and uncles that breastfeed us collectively, the trees, and then our brothers and sisters of the animal kingdom. And when we have that, you know, when we have that languaging, then we can start to, you know, really care for country, you know, because we have that relationship that we have just with the words that we say, with those phonetics that we say. And then, you know, here in these lands, like, the earth likes to hear language. It's heard it for millions, well, thousands of years, however many years, who knows. And it can hear it. It can hear that frequency, and it has frequency, and it has vibration, because the English language is a spell, and we're often saying what we don't mean. And so that's also, you know, an important part is to feel into language. So yeah, and I think part of where we're at right now is just coming back to balance. So, you know, there's that whole speak of the feminine rising, yes. But I actually really feel like my men need to sit around that fire. They need to like sit around that fire after they spent all day building someone's house. You know, like, I feel like men need to come back into balance and come back into that remembrance of who they are. And, you know, for all of us just to when I teach, I often talk to placing the tongue on the roof of your mouth and feeling the orbit of energy that's circling around your body. So you've got the feminine line of energy, which is like not the 12 main meridians, but one of the other ones that is inside the conception vessel, that's more inner in the body, that goes to the perineum. And then you've got the masculine line that comes up the back of the spine, and then they connect with upper palate, the perineum, and that is orbiting around all of us, you know, and just bringing that awareness of that, bringing your tongue to connect with that in moments of being in your sympathetic nervous system. And then to just always acknowledging, you know, the feminine and masculine that is in each and every one of us, which I think is super important and a beautiful tool. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I'd like to share is the importance of when we birth, to keep that umbilical cord connected to our grandmother placenta, to keep it connected as long as it stays alive, you know, to not sever that connection, because I feel like that in that very first moment that we come into being, we disconnect from the mother in that way. We disconnect from the grandmother, we disconnect from our ancestors, we disconnect from our lineage. And so that I think is probably the most important and powerful thing that we can do. And I know this because I've done it with 2 of my babies, and I didn't do it with the first 2 babies because I didn't know, like, and just that profound experience and that intelligence and that that life force and that wisdom and that knowledge of setting that baby up for the environment that it's born into is just like, you know, epic, and allowing us to be that superhuman that we are meant to be. And with that, I feel complete. Thank you for hearing me. Yay.
So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that, Eve. And yeah, so nice that you get to live amongst your, you know, elders and mom up there, and really reclaiming your language and reclaiming all of the parts that they tried to take, you know. And that's one of the things for me as an Irish woman, you know, as with Irish ancestry, and is Misha Saoirse, which means I am freedom. And I come from a long line of rebels and revolutionaries and matriarchs and, you know, shankies, which is storytellers. And it wasn't until I moved to Australia where, you know, I connected to my own sacred ancestry through learning about the Indigenous people of Australia there, and how much their land and their lore and, you know, their lives had been taken, and how much they still were so connected to their culture and their, you know, their ancient ways. And it kind of rekindled a memory in me about my own sacred ancestry, which then I began to delve a lot deeper into and learn about, you know, all of the incredible mythology and things that I can connect to, which one of them, when you mentioned the masculine and feminine, you know, in Irish mythology, the masculine was married to the land, to the sovereignty goddess. So the masculine king was married in this sacred ritual called the Matriarchy, and they were married in this sacred way that, you know, when the king was fair and just, he was, you know, the land was abundant, you know, she represented nature, and he represented the people and the culture. And you know, when they worked together in reciprocity and support of one another, then everything thrived, you know. And the birth weights would the land was abundant. But when he was like unjust or unfair, you know, he would suffer her wrath, and the crops would fail and the birth rates would drop. And it was a sign until the sovereignty goddess and that they could take their power back from this corruption, you know. And that's what really kind of woke me up to learning these stories. It was like, that is what the world needs now, the feminine to kind of take back control, and not even take, but start working together in a more balanced, harmonious way, you know, which is so important to be able to thrive. And that's what the way they did thrive back in the day, when masculine and feminine energies lived in this, you know, sacred kind of way for the alchemy of creation, basically. And that's what really is necessary for a return to that too, for all of us, for sure. But yeah, I'm so grateful that we got to have this conversation today, and just, you know, throw a spotlight on the little ways that we can. And, you know, for me, I'm trying to reclaim my native tongue too, and learn my language. And also being in another country, in Indonesia, in Bali, Mama Bali is where I am now, where, you know, I've been so lucky to be able to be supported here to live my life, and my children grow up in a different culture, trying to learn that language too. And Bali actually means offering. You know, it's the essence of offerings. The essence of offerings is the highest gratitude to the gods and goddesses. And the way of life here is in a constant flow of reciprocity, you know, giving and receiving from nature and the divine. And it reminds me of the way that my Celtic ancestors did live too. And that's what I do to connect back to, you know, the ancestors and connect to the sacredness, is to offer up my prayers and my gratitude to the earth, and do little offerings and little rituals in that way in Bali, you know, obviously honoring all of the ancestors of these lands and my own homelands, and the ancestors of Australia. And that's what I love that you speak into, Yoli, in your essay that I wrote today. It's like, we're all Indigenous, you know, we're all Indigenous to the earth. We're all children of the earth. And it's time that we remembered our mother, and it's time that we remembered each other, and not only mother ourselves, but have the capacity to mother others too. So yeah, while resting. And that's a fine line, isn't it? In this day and age, when we're trying to be activists and allies, and, you know, we're trying to be all the things, to be able to also claim our rest as well, and get enough of it is a fine balancing act.
Yes, yes. Well, I wanted to just share a little word of things that I heard, you know, and in this round table, I heard a collage of global views, right? Eve, I heard you reference, you know, East Asian cosmology of the body while talking about your ancient First Nations traditions, bringing those threads into the modern moment, reclaiming and reconnecting and healing, and seeing, you know, that, like, we have the strength of wombs. And what about our men folk? Like, this is a question I'm asking in a lot of spaces I'm in, of just like, and what are we going to do? You know, in support of healing sacred masculine. Like, how about that? You know, where do we go there? That's a different roundtable. But I loved when you were talking about the cosmology, you know, conception and governing vessel, because this is the really exciting moment that we're in, right? We walk this fine line of, hey, let's honor, not appropriate, right? We want to do less of going to other people's places and taking their traditions, removing them from the land, most likely slapping a trademark on it and then selling it in the marketplace. We're trying to avoid perpetuating that system of harm. But in the act of rematriation, we're returning to our shared indigeneity. We are all indigenous of this earth. Nobody was born on Mars yet. I'm not into it. I want to be here on the earth. I want to make the earth work. I'm so happy, Eve, that you are a carrier of the earth medicine Yes, please. You know, please help us, show us the way through song, through medicine, you know, through communion. I'm in the image of the first dawn of the day. Like I'm waiting for my opportunity to take pilgrimage to your lands patiently. This, but we are in a globalized moment. We do have technologies that connect. We're like in the act of futurism that the ancestors dreamed. We're in it. And then our job is to get into the rest, to dream the next Afro, Latinx, Indigenous future, Celtic futurism, you know? We need to be a little bit careful instructing people to simply go and find their ancestry. We need to be a little bit careful in how we're inviting folks to reconnect to ancestral tradition. I hear helpful encouragement and I hear an equal amount of recklessness that is pushing people towards, I just call it purity practices. Look, I'm a super mixed cultural person, mixed, multicultural, multilingual, multi-religious. Like, that is our future present. We're all collaging this. We want to do that with a sense of strength and integrity, and that's why we root it in the earth first. And we call in the ancestors first and open up that cosmology of what you said, all our relations, all our kin, like this. So let's do this with eyes open, with big awareness, because what globalization has done is given us access to all the traditions. Let us be responsible and honor, not appropriate, as we rematriate.
Yeah, beautiful.
Beautifully said. Let's do that. Come on, let's go. What are you waiting for?
Yes, please.
Go. And it's
go.
that where you just have to do and be. You just be and do. Be and do. Be and do. You know? And then those, you know, that need to follow will follow or not. But you just be and do.
It's like birth, right? Like your body knows how to do this. Right? When we support people in birth, you know, it's like, let's just create the atmosphere, but your body already knows how to do this. Our bodies already know how to rematriate.
Yeah, well, my body can't wait to rematriate now. It's late in the day. I'm going to go and lie my ass on the earth and just let this marinate in my bones and in my blood. But yeah, wow, beautiful. I feel like we have covered lots of corners and dropped lots of wisdom for our people. Does anybody have anything last they want to say? Is there anything you want to acknowledge, or, you know?
Just acknowledge you.
I am
Nisha. Amazing.
Yes, thank you for being the visionary, right? All the different roles, right? Even get me out of the bed at 3:30 in the morning. Yay.
I'm telling you, I've made it now. I made it. I've been the resting queen and I've disrupted her sleep. I feel awful.
I'm gonna take a nap. Don't worry.
You take the rest of the day off.
No, I gotta go heal. I'm off to heal people.
Oh, all right, well, try and get a little rest in. And thank you so much for taking one for the team, for getting up in the middle of the night to share your beautiful heart and and art and articulation of this message. And yeah, it's huge, but it is also so simple, you know, it's just so simple and we can confuse it. So it's a lovely reminder to everybody. Thank you so much. And thank you, Eve, for coming in from the beautiful ancient lands of Bundjalung country. Sending you so much love, sister, to you and your family, all there in the background. And yeah, they were very good.
Yay. Take care. Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Bye.
sisters. Good night.